Hello everybody. I am going to discuss Chapter 15. This is for HEA440, of course. I'm in Chapter 15 of the book. This chapter is going to review the use of comparative data and why it's important, etc., especially to managers. So when we're comparing, comparability requirements, there's three major components. You have to have consistency when you're comparing, verification, and measurement. What unit are you actually going to, measure against? All three of those are important. So when it comes to consistency, you just want to make sure everything's equal. Apples to apples, number of patients equals number of patients, or if you're measuring in the unit of time, make sure the time is equivalent. So it's all about being equal. And then speaking of time periods need to be consistent too. You do not want to compare a 10-month period versus a 12-month period. You want to, you can compare them, but you have to do some cross-analysis and equations to get the units of time equal. And then consistent methodology, how you do it. For example, when we discuss the first in, first out versus last in, first out, the inventory method, if that's how you start with your measurements or comparing, you need to stick with that method. So yeah, just use the consistency, time periods, and consistent methodology when it comes to comparing data. Alright, so I'm just, in my videos, I use an image in my video that I think reflects the information, and I have the book in front of me, and I review from the book. I'm not going to read the chapter to you. You guys are perfectly capable of doing that, but I like to just review some highlights. So I'm on page 162, inflation factors. You have to consider inflation when you're doing any type of healthcare finance, especially as a manager, because different years are going to have different rates. Verification, again, we just went through that. Data has to be verified. It also needs to be reasonable. And if you were to run comparative data and I come in not really knowing much about it, without any type of persuasion or coercion or preference, I should be able to run the data and get the same analysis as you. So we should be able to come to the same conclusion. And then the next paragraph talks about monetary unit measure. The money measurement in the United States is very different than what other countries, the value of them are. Euros are worth certain amounts at certain times. Britain, United Kingdom is mentioned all over the world. Just be careful with what unit of measurement you are using. So when it comes to managers, the manager's responsibility is to recall and apply all elements of consistency when we're doing data. Different facilities, whether it's hospitals, doctor's office, whatever, will use different platforms for that. Some of it's very automated. I don't know, probably not too many are left doing things by paper. Everything now has to be electronic, especially medical record wise. So I imagine the data analysis is being done that way too. So programs that you can learn, for example, one's QuickBooks, Quicken, there's so many. But anyway, it's not many people do it by hand anymore. But of course, always in math, it's good to know how to do it by hand. And that's where the worksheets come into play with these chapters. So table 15.1 is a comparative analysis. If you look at it, the year 2, that first column that is listed, that is the actual. That is what the monies that were spent. The middle column was the budget. That was what was proposed, if you will, or projected, or I can't think of another word. But yes, so that's the budget, but the actual. And then the actual's on the left-hand side. The budget's in the middle. Then the difference on the right-hand side, you'll see the positive and the negative. So just be careful, though, when it's a positive, the percentage is listed as positive. That means more was spent. And your chapter goes into that. I'm just highlighting it. Flipping the page, talking about comparing to other organizations. There's another type of graph. I'm just going to keep going because you guys can read these graphs. The bottom of page 165. So obviously, when you're looking at graphs, you have to be careful with the data. Figure 15.2, if you look, Hospital 1 has 100 beds. Hospital suit, no, sorry, that's a bad example. That is not at all what I meant to say. My point is, I'm reading the text and trying to look at the graph at the same time. A 400-bed hospital is going to incur more expense than a 100-bed hospital. That's what I was trying to get at. I was looking at the wrong graph. So just be like that. Just be careful when you are reading graphs to make sure your data is accurate and comparable. Of course, a 400-bed hospital is going to cost more to run than a 100-bed. And here's the one. So the next page is the graph that matches that sentence that I was trying to get out. So review that. If I just confused you, email me, let me know. And of course, anytime as you're reading through the chapters, reading the PowerPoint, whatever, reach out to me and I will be more than happy to review the items with you. Sometimes saying them out loud or hearing somebody else say it differently helps. Okay, so on page 167, it talks about industry standards. I'm not going to go into detail there. Page 168, making data comparable, of course. This section discusses annualizing partial year expenses along with the inflation rate, standardized measures of currency. That's all about table 15.2. And take a look at that. And here we have the actual 10-month versus the annualized 12 months. So be careful. You're going to want to analyze that data knowing that those numbers are different. So you have to convert it. That's the word I was looking for. You're going to have to convert if you're going to use time. Okay, page 169, inflation factors. Over the years, or even sometimes, unfortunately, a short amount of time, inflation can go up or it can go down. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about healthcare finance. There is no way to predict it. Or you can forecast it, but you're not going to get it exact. And that's just part of finance burden. You just have to be careful. You want to be very conservative when it comes to inflation and finance. Okay, currency measures. We just talked about that. The foreign currency example and exchanges is listed there. And then towards the end of the chapter, we're talking about charts. So managers use charts to explain projects and report their results. You have that data on the charts. And chart drafting has become a lot easier with the use of programs too. Even Word, Excel, all of those type of platforms, programs use charts now. Be sure and read about the different types of charts and how they're presented as far as circular, vertical columns, horizontal columns, bars, etc. You're going to want to know that. And then the different templates, how you get the templates, what it means, the data points, how they cross, intersect, etc. We just did that in one of the other worksheets. So yeah, that is chapter 15. Seriously, if this helped, great. If I confused you, let me know. And yeah, enjoy the chapter.